So let us explore AWS Lambda today, and we'll come over across why should we go with Lambda and how exactly the Lambda is work and how Lambda is different from other servers. We'll understand few things. Fine. So this is the agenda of the session. So we'll try to understand what is Lambda, why should we go with or why should we use Lambda, and obviously, so if we are using some features or the service, we should have some advantages, right? So we'll try to understand from the key features and we'll try to compare the servers, that is Lambda as well as EC2. And in Lambda, we do have some triggers. Why should we use or why should we go with triggers, and what are the advantages of going with triggers, and how the destination is going to work. Everything we'll go and see along with the practical. Fine. So let us understand what exactly is all Lambda. So AWS Lambda is a serverless compute. So you can either consider as a compute or the computer or the server, or you can assume it as an instance too. It's up to you how you are comfortable with the words. Fine. So it's something, but it's a serverless computer. Fine. So it's do not have any proper, that is backend infrastructure which is being managed by the user. Fine. That is what the meaning of serverless compute service that is provided by the AWS. That allows you to run your code without provisioning or managing the servers. So what exactly they are trying to convey is, so you don't require to manage your instance, that is your RAM, ROM, how much CPU you want, and the caching, and what image should be used. Image is nothing but the operating system to run your application, and what are the dependencies required to run your application like that. So each and everything will be taken care by the AWS Lambda itself. So configuring the so only we have work here is we need to create the Lambda function. Along with that, we need to choose the environment. Environment is nothing but it could be a Python, Node.js, Golang, Java, like that. Fine. So that is the environment we can say. So simply we need to upload the code and configure the trigger. So if you want your problem statement to be automated, so for example, let us go with grabbing the dynamic weather report from the XYZ website. Okay. So on that case, we will be writing the problem statement to grab from the web scratch. So based on the problem statement, it will go into intended server and it will fetch. So since I have just mentioned the dynamic one, right? So we have to develop the trigger saying that, so if any changes occur in that application or that source, if something got noticed, so automatically my Lambda function to be invoked. So for that purpose, we need to configure the triggers. So if any changes are occurred in that particular page, so automatically my problem statement will go into this game. So what is my problem statement? So fetch the latest weather report. Fine. And Lambda handles the scaling. So it's not required to have keep an eye on watching or monitoring your servers, whether it is go utilize the 100% or whether it is utilizing the below average, like that. So each and everything is taken care by the Lambda itself, even the storage thing as well as security. So all these together we call it as management. Fine. So altogether, what we just understand is only we need to create a function, that is Lambda function, and we need to provide the source code. That's all. So you have done with everything. So you just call your program or you can test your application. So without any hurdle of managing the infrastructure. So fine. So that is why we make use of Lambda. We'll see why should we go with Lambda. So since it's a serverless, you don't need to manage or maintain servers. So AWS handles everything on behalf of you. So I just mentioned, right, you don't require to manage scaling, that is storage, security thing. So everything is being managed by the AWS itself. So only thing you need to provide your source code or the problem statement. That's all. And automatic scaling. So if there is a huge traffic occurrence, for example, so we'll go with another example. Fine. So you have some e-commerce websites or the application, so which is about to have the Christmas or the Eve sales. Fine. So gradually the sales will increases as the offer increases to the wish listed products. So obviously the people keeps their products wish listed and wait for the offers. If any seasons offers occurs, obviously every people will rush on a time. On that time, we need to scale up our CPU, RAMs, everything to process the request as early as possible and to provide the reliable service to the end users. So on that case, we should keep monitoring our existing servers capacity or the health. I can say that, right? So when it comes to Lambda, so AWS will itself will monitor all those things and will auto scales the required infrastructure or required provisionings according to the request. So if request got reduced gradually means, so automatically the infrastructure or the provisions, they will come to minimize the things. So on that case, the cost is optimized. So only when there is a request or more, the resources are used maximum or as desired as. If requests are normal, the normal which is suitable for that request, it will be provisioned for it. Right. And it is also cost effective for keeping the resources without deleting your function does not get bill for that. Fine. So you don't get any bill for it. So you can keep as many as you require. So only you will be charged for the each request or each event called. Fine. So if people check out the card, only on that case you will be charged for that, or else you won't get any charge. For example, if you are performing a plus b equals, if you are performing sum of two numbers means the time taken to compute that function, that is a plus b, and will be storing the value, right? Only for the that per time of duration of execution of your program you will be charged. Fine. And it is also event driven based, as I just mentioned, right? If you click on the checkout button on your cart, automatically the function will be triggered to the payment. So the triggered function, it will take some time, right, to switch from one page to the another page. That duration takes place, right? For that purpose, for that duration you will be charged, and that is how the event actually works. So Lambda functions can be triggered by the event from AWS services or the custom events, so making it ideal for building the reactive system. So reactive in the system means if you again enter the checkout button, automatically the function will be invoked and things will happen according to the plan. Fine. And we do have some key features or the advantage. Why should we go with? We just understand what exactly the Lambda function or the Lambda AWS Lambda and what why should we use, and we should have some key features or the advantage. So we should have some benefits, right? So we already saw few benefits here. We'll try to explore even more if possible. So we just explored serverless compute, that is you need not to manage server or the infrastructure. Lambda will take care everything backend, including server provisioning, maintenance, and scaling the resources. This makes it an ideal choice for building applications so without worrying the server management, right? And also it's event driven. So how Lambda is designed to respond to wide varieties of triggers. So it's not really limited to one or two triggers. So you can have as many as triggers. Fine. And from HTTP request to change data. So which allows you to build event driven. application automatically and responds to incoming event. Fine. And automatic scaling. So what could be the automatic scaling? So Lambda automatically scales in response to number of incoming requests. So if there is a huge traffic coming to your application and you have only the 2 GB of RAM, so which can handle 10 requests per minute. So your server capability should be more. So it should handle at least 100 requests per minute. On that case, automatically the Lambda will scale. That is, it will increase the RAM as well as the CPU, number of CPU or the core, to process the request as early as possible to the end users to provide reliability and more efficient. Fine. So it can handle single request or thousand requests concurrently. It is not limited to like that. I just mentioned, right? So you can have as many as requests. So according to the request, the auto scaling will take place. So making it suitable for unpredictable or high variable workloads. Okay. So pay per using pricing. So we going to pay how much time we use the Lambda. So for example, if you are using the Lambda for 0.2 seconds, only for that minute we will be paying. So if you aren't using for rest of your time, you won't paying any money. So that is what they are telling here or trying to convey you people. So Lambda charges only for the compute time we use. The billing calculated based on the number of requests and the duration. So for example, in a minute we made a 5 request, and 5 requests to process is all about probably 0.5 second, means only for that many requests and that many seconds we will get charged, and the rest of time if your application or if your function is idle you won't be charged for it of each execution. This pay as you go and model is cost effective, since for holding the your function in the AWS resource you won't get any charge for it, and application with the infrequent or inconsistent workload also, and flexible environment. So Lambda supports multiple programming language, but here we have some limitation, but we could not open to all the environment. So the Lambda function has its own limitation. Only that functions or the problem statement which are written in that environment can able to make use of Lambda. Fine. So we'll try to go with it. So which includes, we can, if you have your problem statement written in Python or JavaScript or Node.js, Java, Go, or Ruby, on these thing you can able to run your application or the problem statement in the Lambda. Fine. So you can also bring your own runtime to support other languages. And monitoring and log. So it's the most important thing, right? If something goes wrong in between the request, so obviously we should have something to be monitored. So what exactly is going on, and who is requesting what, and what response is going. For more efficient reliability, we should have log monitoring system, right? So even this also being taken care by the Lambda itself. So Lambda integrate with AWS CloudWatch to provide detailed monitoring and logging, the ability to set alarm. So we can have alarm. So if you are, so you should know your right. If you have doubt on Lambda, means you can set the alarm. So how exactly it is working, how the utilizations are working, and how many requests are it is handling. So we can have limitations, and by setting up the monitoring of logs and the functions, performance, and error rates and other key metrics, right? And destination for synchronous invocation. So with Lambda destination, you can define destination for successful or failed asynchronous invocation. So for example, assume that you have an instance or the server which is running from last 3 years, and one of your employee or the colleague bring it to hard state, that is he stopped the server as he moved to another server, which is then he later forgets to delete that older version of the server. Fine. So since in the organization nobody will going and stop the server unnecessary until unless it is not required. Fine. So on those case, it will if you have written the lambda function. So if you found some instance is stopped working, so automatically you can delete that resource. Fine. So by deleting that resource, you can optimize the cost, right? So you should know, right, what exactly happened, who has deleted it. So on that case, we can have the notification. Or if someone assume that you people are using the AWS in your organization and you are restricted, and you have your team has instructed you to not to create any resources in some criteria. They have provided some criteria. Even though if you are creating any resources, you should follow this protocol. If not, you will be charged accordingly, like that, for unnecessary billing of AWS. Fine. So to monitor all those things, we have set up the trigger or the event by including all the services and be linked with our lambda function, and the destination should be your team leader. That is, if any something goes wrong apart from the instructed thing, so automatically it should the event should trigger, lambda function should be invoked, and it should send me the notification saying that so and so person is trying to create the resource which is not included in the policy, like that. So to do all those things, we make use of destination on successful or failed asynchronous invocation. Fine. This can route the result to service, like you can make use of simple notification service or simple queue service or another lambda functions. So making it easy to manage workflow or monitoring the execution of outcome. So fine. So we just understand some key features and what are the advantage. So the key features are not limited only these things. We do have another key features only have just embedded, which are frequently being used and which are more to know. Only those I have included here. Fine. So we'll try to compare some AWS services. Fine. So even though the Lambda is also a server and EC2 is also a kind of a server, right? Since we'll be exchanging the data in both services. So when it comes to compute model, so it's completely serverless. So you don't require to define the storage, RAM, ROM, CPU, networking protocols, everything, right? So we just need to have code and we're going to execute here. But here we need to mention from scratch. So you need to name your instance, you need to provide the operating system and what version you should be using, everything, right? Fine. So we need to provide all the details of the infrastructure or by provisioning and also scaling. So when requests are more, automatically it takes care of scaling the infrastructure. But here we should either set up the manual scaling or the automation, and we need someone to be monitor all the time. So even though if you assume that we have automated the things means we cannot leave it as it is. So it might arise as some errors or some logs. Fine. For that purpose, we need someone to be monitoring. But here you don't require it. So everything is taken care by the AWS. And pricing also. So here you will be charged only for the execution and the duration of execution. But here on hourly basis or the secondly basis. So every second if you are running your instance means you will be charged accordingly. And here you don't need to manage your all the infrastructure, but here you need to take care of your infrastructure and startup time. So within the fraction of second, you can use the lambda function. But to set up all your infrastructure in EC2, it will take few minutes, right? At least we have to spare 5 minutes to set up all your things, and we need to connect. If there is any issue backend, it will take some time to connect it, right? So all those are the problem. And when should we go with lambda and when should we go with EC2? That is what they are the use case. So if you have planned for some testing of your application, then you can go with Lambda. And if there is an multiple events or the microservices if you are using, on that case you can go with Lambda also. So that is event based. If some event got triggered, only then the function should be executed, or else you don't require to execute that function. So on those case we can go with Lambda. So for same the case or the scenario, if you are going with EC2 means we don't know when the triggers will happen and all. So we have to keep our application up and running all the time, right? So on that case the charges will be more. So to optimize the cost, we will be choosing the Lambda over EC2. And if you are running the long application, that is your Zomato, all those things, so people will use regularly same functionality, right? So on that case, it's better to go with EC2 since there will be more request, right? So anyhow, the Lambda will completely work on the event or the request based, right? So on that case, we can go with EC2. So we can optimize the thing. And we just I just mentioned, right, the triggers in what are the manner we can have. So API trigger, so you can embed or you can link your Lambda function to invoke the Lambda function. We can have multiple options to add the events. So even by setting the API gateway, so enable the function to be called from HTTP request. So you have some path in your applications. On that case, you can integrate the API gateway, or if something object you push to your S3 bucket, on that case we can have to invoke Lambda function based on the message in queue or the notifications on that case. If something got triggered over the CloudWatch on that case, right? So if you are doing some operations, deleting, data changing, invoking, on that case, these are very few things, and you can have multiple service. So just for the understanding purpose, I have written. So on all these ways, we can add the triggers. Fine. And also the destination. So as I just uh, explained a few minutes back, right? So Lambda destination depend what happens to be result. So once after event got triggered, your Lambda function got invoked, right? So once after invoking, you should be knowing, right, what exactly the output was, whether it is successful or not. You should be knowing, right? For that purpose, we'll be going with the destination, synchronous invocation. So returns the result directly to the column. So it will return back where it is, what you know, right? Asynchronous invocation. So executes with waiting for response. So it will wait for response until the invocation of Lambda functions complete, allowing you to define the destination based on the success or failure of the function. If it is got success, you can link or you can create the rule in simple notification or queue, or you can have another Lambda function to navigate to some other services like that. If it is failure, and we should have the logs, right? So we cannot always go and see log in AWS. So if it is on your mail or some your WhatsApp or somewhere else, you can watch it there only itself, and you can make resolution more even faster. Fine. So we just understand the concept of the Lambda and why should we use Lambda, and what are the key advantages of Lambda over the other service, and when should we go with Lambda, when should not we go with Lambda, everything, right? So we'll have quick understanding of the tool feasibility, right? So we'll try to understand. So this is my AWS console, and either you can go with type Lambda. So if you do not have any Lambda function, this is how it appears to be. Fine. So just create a Lambda function, and here we have a multiple option. So if you want to create your own Lambda function, you can go with from scratch, or you can use the blueprint. So blueprint in the sense we have some predefined functions which are already written from the AWS. We can make use of all those things. Fine. Or if you have container image, that is select the container image to deploy for your function. So here you already have the um, that is Docker images like that. So you can directly link it and run it also. Or if you have some application which is written on your things, yeah, also you can link. So here I will be going with my custom Lambda function. Okay, so you just name your function. So here I will be going to demonstrate you people deletion of EC2 instance apart from the free tier. Fine, we'll try to give EC2 termination. So it's not always use the naming convention which are relevant. Fine, and here we just saw right the environment which are supported. So these are the environment which will which are supported by the Lambda. So I'll be going with Python, and you can have your architecture. Fine. So also you can create the new rule, or you can use the existing role also. So role in the sense what are the permissions you are given or you are provisioned to access in your AWS service or the AWS account. So here we will be providing the permissions. So what are the resources you can access by running the function like that. Fine. So we'll go with creating the new Lambda permission function which is going to create it like this. So I will show you. So, so in additional configuration, so if you want to access your Lambda function, so you just enable this function and you can have it. Fine. So here I don't want to access externally, so just will go with it. I will create a function. So once after creating, so this is how uh, your Lambda function will looks. So it is not yet been coded or nothing have been done. So only you have just created the function. So now on you need to go with all these things. So you have multiple options here to upload your code or to integrate your code. So in latest update, they have provided the VS code here itself. They have integrated the VS code. Fine. So either you can, if you have written your code already, you can include it here, or else you can upload it from the outside also. How you can upload? You we have two options. Just upload from either you have zip, that is whatever the things you going to upload to AWS, that is Lambda function, that should be zipped and less than the 25 MB file. So whatever is the compressed file, the maximum size is 25 MB. Fine. If you are exceeded that, just upload the things to or upload your object or the file to your S3, and from there copy the location of your object and keep paste it here and pull it over from there. That those are the two option, and another option is directly you can paste your code inside the VS code. Fine. So these are the three option where you can integrate your code. Fine. So once after integrating, just deploy it and test. So why should we make use of test means to know whether your intended problem is running fine or not. Okay, so if you are using, so this is the default function name used by the Lambda. Okay, so that is Lambda handle. So if you have written your name in some other thing, so always remember, just scroll down here, code properties, under the runtime settings, right? Inside just edit this and try to replace with your handler, that is Lambda function name, class name. Okay, so just replace with so that it will work according to your code. Fine. So this is some overview, and here you can so same you have to create some test case. Okay, so we'll have easy to run. We'll keep it private, and we'll save and we'll test. So you can have the log details. So what is the execution and all. So see here the initial duration. So it got run in 3 milliseconds. So I will be charged for the duration of this. Fine. So the status code is 200, that is success. So what should be written? So they are returning hello world from Lambda. So if you cannot able to view your logs here, just try to click here and it will prompt you the CloudWatch. So automatically the log monitoring system will also created while creating the Lambda itself. So it's created in the name of your Lambda function itself. So here which was the latest trigger happened or the function run, and here we have so initial the function got initiated and started and ended, and the report is given here. So if you found any errors during the execution, you can have it here clearly. Fine. So this is why the test column is here, and monitoring is nothing but the utilization, resource utilization. You can set the alarm. Okay, and the configuration. So here the general configuration. So they have here is so for each event or the trigger, it should be the timeout maximum time they have given is 0.3 seconds. So that is 3 seconds. Fine. So you can maximize up to 15 minutes. So by going here, you can maximize here 15 minutes, and the storage also. So they have set up to 1 GB. Fine. Since I am using Twitter, I have this. So you can maximize based on this. Fine. Sorry, this is the storage and this is the memory. Okay. So that is in general configuration and triggers. You can add the event here and you can manage your permission, what are the resources you can access from this function and all. Okay, and the destination you can set up how you should do, and the function URL just I show you, right? Or else you can create it by here itself, and environmental variable tags. You can have your function to be run within your VPC for more secure one. Okay, you can also link to your database, monitoring, accuracy, synchronous code signing, file system, all these things. So these are some features, and you can name it as alias and what version you will be using of code, everything. Okay, so we'll try to have some scenario over here to understand all those things. Okay, so assume that we're going to create one EC2 instance in medium T3 medium. Okay, so the free tier is only for T3 micro, and I will going to create in T3 medium. And if you want, you can have your key pair to log in, and I don't want others to be created, that is firewall or the security group. I will go with existing one to optimize the thing. That's it. Research. Okay, so my instance is running, so another instance is stopped. Fine. So if I am using T3 medium, definitely I will be charged for the duration the instance is running. So till how long the instance is going to run, for that many minutes I will get billing for that. Fine. Okay, so assume that I have deployed some application in this instance or the server. So it is running well, and also parallelly I have to deploy it in another environment or the operating system with the latest things. So I don't want this one to be used anymore in future. Okay, so I will stop this instance. Okay, so it is stopping, so let it happen. So I stopped this instance and I kept it as it is. So the volume is already occupied of 8 GB, right, which is associated to my server. So I'm just wasting the resource of 8 GB, right? So if I have deleted or terminated my instance, or obviously I can have another 8 GB of space, that is free space in my account. So to optimize or to automate all those things, so I going to create some lambda function saying that, so if you found any T3 medium instance of the server which is stopped, come to stop state from the running state, you can delete it automatically, so without any notification. So why? To optimize the cost and as well as to make use of the resources more efficiently. So obviously, if I am stopping that resource or the instance, means I don't want to use it anymore. Definitely, right? If I wanted to use that instance, definitely I will keep it running. So anyhow, I don't want that application anymore running in my account. So I want that resource to be utilized. So without manual process. So on that case, what I going to do? I just, if something T3 medium instance type got, that is changes the state from running to stopped, automatically it should be deleted. So without the manual process. For that, I have already written the code and we'll try to paste it here. I will explain this code later, so you people don't worry. Okay, so we'll first initially deploy the theme. Okay, and we'll run the test. So whether my code is running properly or not. Okay, so we encounter the status, that is we could not, there is a error, failed, the event got failed, and error type is sandbox.timeout. So it's throwing the timeout request. So why it is throwing this timeout request? We have already configured by default, they have configured here 3 seconds maximum timeout. If the request not processed within that time, it should be executed from, that is exited from the function. So that is why it is got exited. So we'll try, keep it maximum. Okay, so by keeping the exit time to maximum, nothing will happen. Okay, so just update to maximum timeout, fine. And we'll go in the permission, because why should we go with permission, I will also show that. Okay, so we have set the time to maximum and we'll try to run that again, so whether we can able to access the resource or not. So since it's throwing fit, why? If you cannot able to have a look of your log here, you can obviously go here and go inside your function. Here we will have the latest one, fine. So here we'll try to see. So we have a warning, so lambda unhandled exception. So the most likely cause is an issue code, however in the rare case the lambda runtime to be updated. So we just updated that. Okay, and thing is unauthorized operation. So we have not provided the permission to access my EC2 for this lambda function. So I need to update the permission. So what I need to do? Okay, so we'll go to configuration, inside the permission you click on the role. So here I have only the lambda basic execution permission. So I want, since I want to access the EC2 instance permission, because I need to see what are the instances are running and which are turning from state running to stopped one. If it is stopped, I should delete it, right? So I need to have permissions, right? So we'll try to create new permission. Okay, so in what I trying to access, I'm trying to access the resource or the activity of EC2. Okay, so here we'll have describe instance. Okay, okay. So describe instance, what exactly it will grant permission to describe one or more instance. So what exactly the permission is will throw us means, so it will list all the instance which are available under this account. Okay, next is terminate instance. So what is my agenda? So if my instance got stopped, automatically it should be terminated. So to delete or to terminate my instance, I should have permission, right? For that I will be adding here. So terminate the instance. Now I have rights to terminate that instance. So you can also specify if you want all instance to be terminated which are created under T3 medium in the state of stop, or you can also specify it. So if you want to specify, you should have the, that is the Amazon resource number. So for that we should always we should already created it on that case. Okay, so now I have added the two permission. First one will list all the running instance or stopped instance irrespective of state. It will list all the state instances. And second one, I will check my, if my instance state is stopped means of T3 medium, go and delete or terminate the instance, like that. Okay, for that purpose I have written, that is I had given terminate instance permission. I go next, and the I should give the policy name. So what exactly the permission is doing? Okay, role. Okay, so easy to termination of T3. So stop diagram in the sense which is stop state. So those instance will come into terminated. Okay, so I will be creating the policy. Now the policy is under my Lambda function. Fine. So this is got done, and so come to CloudWatch. So you want to automate the thing. So first we'll try to run whether the code is going to work or not. Okay. So anyhow, we have T3 medium which is in stop medium. So we'll try to run whether we can able to delete that resource or not. We'll test it. So now, yes, status code is 200. They have terminated the instance. Which instance? This instance ID. We'll try to refresh it and we can see here. So they have terminated the T3 medium instance which was in the state of stopped. Fine. So here what I did manually, I go here and I run my in, that is Lambda function, to check whether if there is any instance which are in the stopped state of T3 medium. So I don't want to run my code manually. I want to add a trigger. On that case, just go to CloudWatch, and here we have an event under that. Okay, inside that rule. Okay, so just create the rule and name the rule. So EC2 underscore stopped. So EC2 which are stopped. Okay, so you just provide the description what exactly the trigger is or the event is working. Okay, so if you want to run your event whenever there is any changes got occurred, or on that case you go with event pattern. If you don't want your event go with any changes or the modification, if you want your application or the function to be run every day at desired time, on that case you can go with schedule. So you can mention the time. Okay, so just I go with the event pattern itself and hit next. So to when you are testing, you can have this one. Fine. So fine, so this is the sample event, so you can have test it on your own, or you can directly go and create the event pattern. So here the resource, if you are using outside the resource or anything, you can go with that. Since I am using the AWS resource, I will be have provided the event source is AWS. Inside AWS, what resource I am using? EC2. Fine. So inside my EC2 instance, what I am doing, so instance state change notification. If your instance got changed, so automatically notify that. So if instance state got changed from running to stop, automatically the event will be triggered in this case. Fine. Just hit enter and select the targeted one, that is Lambda. So where you wanted to run if event got success. So that is what they are asking here, and that is target. So here you just provide the Lambda and you just provide the EC2 termination which we created here. Fine. And hit next. If you want to add tag, you can have, or else you just review your work. Fine. So we just created the basic information and the permission or the event what we are trying to do. So in Amazon EC2 instance, detail step. So if EC2 instance did change, so if the instance got changed from running to stop, automatically terminate it. That is what we are telling here. And where the if the event got true, that is if event is changed the state from running to stop, where it should execute. So that is what you are providing here, target. So inside my target, in this function, I have written to delete the instance, right? So that is what they are, and we will try to create the rule. Okay, so now I have created the event which is associated with my Lambda function. Fine. So we'll try to refresh it. See here. So event bridge is created. Okay, from the CloudWatch. If you want to add any notification service, you can add it here, or you can just create it there, and you can link how we link the event. Fine. So now we have just done from manual process to event driven process. So let us see whether the event is working fine or not. Okay, let us launch the new instance. We'll provide some name to my instance, and our main agenda is to delete the T3 media which is created. I don't want any security groups. We'll go with it. Fine, we'll launch it. Okay. Fine, being instance launched successfully, and we'll try to refresh it. So observe that the instance type is T3 medium and the state is running. So we'll try to stop this instance. So if it is turned from running to stop, what should happen according to our Lambda function? It should terminate, right? So we'll observe that whether it is going to happen automatically because of event or not. Okay, so the instance got stopped. So automatically I didn't do anything, so I just refreshed my window, so automatically it start terminating or shutting down my instance. So this is how you can optimize the cost, and you can make use of the resource even more efficiently, so without any. So we not only use Lambda function to test our application on event driven basis, also we can make use to optimize the cost, your AWS billing cost, by setting up the events like this. We should have the Lambda function code. Okay, so don't worry if you don't know how to create all those things. So here let me explain what exactly is happening. Here we will be using the Python based script. So since we are using the Python, we required some libraries or the agent to interact with my AWS. So to interact with my AWS, we should always go with Boto. Boto 3 is the, that is Boto 3 is the library. Okay, so to interact with the Python application, fine. So, sorry, with the to do the any interaction with the AWS. For Azure and GCP, we'll have different libraries. So here we'll be using this one. So whenever there is a event got trigger automatically, so let us just delete the default thing which is not required. Okay, I just updated the code. Okay, so I have used Moto 3 since we'll be interacting with the AWS. Okay, it's mandatory to have, and whenever if the event got trigger, automatically the function will be invoked there. So once, since we are doing with EC2, they have initialized the EC2 access here, that is EC2 client boto3.client. Okay, that is EC2 service. If you are using different service, just replace the convention variable and provide the proper key value. Okay, so how do we know all these things? Just refer to boto3 documentations. Fine, here we have all those things. So if you wanted to access any of these service, you just go there, and we'll have alarm, like these are the snippets where you make use for your problem statement, and you need to modify definitely according to your problems. Okay, so here they have included, that is they have inherited the things. Okay, and then what I am telling, so I wanted to display all, or I wanted to fetch all the instance which are created under this account. To do those things, I have described the instance. We there added the permission called describe instance, right, for this purpose only. And here I have written the, or I have done the filtration, that is name since we are will be using loop here, instance name it will check. Okay, state name, so value should be stopped. If it is stopped means, and check for if one condition got agreed, and it will check with the another one. If it is of T3 medium, automatically it will come here and it will execute the things. So if instance id to terminate, so it will store the id here which are stopped. From here it will going to fetch the instance id. Okay, so ec2.client.terminate instance, we also added the another permission, that is terminate instance, right? So which will help us to interact with that Amazon API from the Boto 3, asking to terminate that instance. From here it will fetch the instance id and it will provide. So once after termination, we will get the output as this. So the status code 200 and terminated successfully. So if you do not found anything, so it will throw this. So body no stop T3 medium, sorry, T3 medium to terminate. So there is no T3 medium which is in the state of stop to terminate here. So that is how this is. So this is all about the Lambda and why should we use, how can we use, in what are the manner we can use. This is all about the AWS Lambda function. So thanks for it. So once after doing all the creations, remember to delete the resources, since we will be using the free tier. Even though if you are using with organization account, always remember to delete if you are not using any of the resources anymore or further. Okay, thank you.